here today with Mick Moffitt. Mick has been involved in fire training for a long time, and I'm not even going to begin to guess how long that was. That's why we brought him here, so he can answer some of those questions. But some of the things that I really want to talk about and address today are the changes that have happened in the industry. Right now in the mainstream media, what we see is a whole lot of negative attacks, for lack of a better term, on first responders, on hospitals, on doctors, on nurses, on the cost of healthcare, on firefighters, on police departments. The list goes on and on, from the wildland fires that are raging all across the West Coast to the downtown metropolitan areas where firefighters are being attacked with bricks and their equipment destroyed while they're trying to respond to save a life. So some of the things that we really want to talk about on this Kingdom First Responders is to retell the story of first responders. Now, Mick, I know that your journey in firefighting began at a very young age, probably even younger than anybody else has considered getting involved in fire services. So tell me how that happened.
Yes, sir. Actually, 6 years old. So in 1976 is where everything kind of began for me. I like to say that I was on both sides of the ladder, so to speak. I've been blessed enough to be a first responder, but then I've also been a part of being rescued as well. In 1976, our house caught on fire in Hagerstown, Maryland, and I'll never forget the influence that night that had on me. Now, that was a tragic night. My mother actually didn't make it out that night.
Wow.
We lost her in that fire. But that wasn't the only thing that inspired me. Now, I do honor my mother and what I do, but what really brought the inspiration and the passion, I believe, to pursuing this as a career was the impact that those firefighters made that night. The impact in such a young boy's life that steered the course and put me on a path to where I am today.
Now, you've been from that journey as a young man. Obviously, you can't jump out there at 6 or 7 and become a firefighter or a first responder in any magnitude. So there was a period of time until you got out of high school, till you were old enough to sign up, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
What was that journey like then? Was it still a fascination from afar? Did it completely leave your mind? What was that season like in your adolescence years?
That's a good question. So that never left the back of my mind. However, when I was 13 years old, almost 14, my dad was killed in a car wreck. That put me on a different path. So firefighting had always been embedded in me. It was always there, but when you're 14, 15 years old without any parental supervision or anyone to help push you towards your dreams, then you're on your own, and life began to happen. So I chose some other paths along the way. Some of them weren't ones I'm proud of, obviously. Some of them were just trying to survive. I believe that surviving mentality, though, and I believe that those times that I did go through those hardships, that helped still prepare me for what I was about to embark on in this industry. So it really wasn't until I was in my 20s before I said, okay, this is what I want to do. This is where I'm at, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Now, did you start off as a volunteer? Did you go to the academy, become a professional right away? What was your journey into the first responder world?
Yes, sir. I started off as a volunteer and absolutely fell in love with it. I would have done it for free my whole life. But at the same time, I had a family that I needed to support. So my wife was a nurse at the time. She actually took on extra shifts, took on the load to send me to the academy. I went to the academy for 3 months, and then when I got out, I was fortunate enough to get picked up.
Wow. Now, that's not the story for everybody. There are a lot of people that go to the academy and then go back to a volunteer department, or they spend their money and go to the academy and realize this is not for me.
Absolutely.
On what scale, especially with all the retrospective view that you have now, on what scale would you say people go through the academy and realize, whoa, that is not what I thought it was?
You know, that's a great question. Some academies don't give the whole culture and the whole look at what a firefighter is going to be. What I mean by that is anyone can go throughout their day and learn about something through a book, and then they can put their hands on it with the tools and all, but the culture within the fire service, living together, making meals together, having people sleep right next to you in dorms, getting up in the middle of the night, you know, things that really the academy doesn't always train you for. Those were the things that we integrated into the training now to help someone get a better look at that. Now I would say that percentage is higher for those who do say this might not be for me, because they get a very well look at what the entire culture of the business
So they're
is.
getting a well-rounded experience.
Yes, sir.
Now, obviously, one thing that you don't want to train, you cannot train, is the emotional impact of observing, witnessing, or being a part of the loss of life.
Yes, correct.
And so there are a lot of people that I would presume go through the training. You know, when I went through training in the Air Force almost 30 years ago, when I went through that training and then went into active as a firefighter in the Air Force, almost every fire we fought while I was on active duty, we set. I mean, it was a training fire.
Yes.
So it was an extremely controlled environment. We knew exactly what was going on. Now, since I've gotten out, we've fought wildland fires. We pulled people out of cars. I rolled up on scenes where the passenger in the car looked just like my daughter, and she was already deceased. And her daddy was another firefighter on the scene. And so coping with that loss of life, how do you prepare someone coming through training division before they go out into the real world, so to speak? How do you prepare them for understanding this is literally a life and death career?
Wow, that's a tough one. So what we've done though is we've took that very seriously. On a national scale now, they say that about 7 years is average for someone to go through a career like this and then say, I'm finished, because of what happens with behavioral health and what might already be there when they enter into the industry. So what we do in training now is we don't just focus on the hard skill set. We also focus on the individual's character, how they've been brought up, where they're at right now mentally, where they might be behaviorally. We don't do that on a professional scale, but what we do is we ask certain questions, and we do roundtables, and we talk for hours, sometimes in the evening when we're off the clock, so to speak, and we just talk about what's going to be out there, what's ahead of you. Have you considered this? Do you know that this is what you're getting into? How would you respond to this? We try to give them a good picture of what they're getting into before they actually enter into that.
And does it help, do you find, for someone who's already experienced maybe the loss of a family member or a loved one, does that help condition them a little bit for the response, or is it still anybody's game, so to speak, in dealing with that first observation of loss of life?
I think what it does is it at least gives them a mental picture, at least gets them thinking. It gets them thinking about, if I were to roll up on something like this, how might I respond to it? Now, we all are different in so many ways, and we do respond differently to certain incidents. However, if you can have somewhat of a look at it ahead of time, I think you can prepare yourself for what you're about to go through. Not everyone's cut out for that, and that's okay. I tell them all the time, I say, you know, we're weird. We have the weird DNA structure. We have this extra chromosome that actually brings excitement when we go into an area where everyone else is fearfully trying to escape from. That's not everyone. That's a calling. That's something that's only geared within certain individuals. We try to pull that out of them here.
And I'm sure there are certain techniques that you use to identify the strength in their character. I know when I went into the Air Force, they thought I was going to go into EOD because I had a background in electronics engineering. But I was reading an article shortly before I went on into basic training, and in the article it said, you know, we can give you 15 reasons why someone fails out of EOD school. We have yet to map any more than 3 consistent characters of the people who actually succeed.
Wow.
They're so randomly odd that we can't pin it down and say, if you meet these 6 checklist boxes, then we know you're going to be a success. They're just not there. There's not enough consistency in them. And I would think in fire training, there's a lot of that too. I mean, you've got to have the intellectual ability to understand the fire sciences. You've got to have the engineering ability to understand the blocking and webbing. And you've got to have the ability to risk assess on the fly and to keep your calm and not be anxious and lose your cool. But there's a whole lot of other psychological, social dynamic that goes into that as well.
Absolutely, and what you do in your private time, what you put into yourself is going to come out whenever you're pressed. I always tell them, you know, character building is about what you're doing when no one else is around looking. It's what you're putting in will come out in the time of need. I always explain to them, sometimes when we go on a scene, our patient may not be the one that's actually hurt. It might be the mother of that person, right?
Right.
And it's hard to train for those kind of incidents, but I always tell them, guys, if you're putting what you need to on the inside, then it will come out whenever you're pushed in time of need.
If you're preparing yourself to be the kind of person
Yes, sir.
to respond
That's
to
right.
So I know here at Training Division, you focus a lot on character.
Correct.
Again, like you said, not necessarily from a professional standpoint, but from a maturity standpoint, from a human relations standpoint. So what are the characteristics, the pillars of characteristics that you say, if you've got these character, you've got a much better shot so to speak, at succeeding? What does
Yes,
that
sir.
look like?
So what we've done is we've developed what we call the character traits of professional firefighters. And the first one is character, starts with a C. The second one's honor, understanding what honor is, understanding that before honor is humility. You have to learn how to be humble. You have to learn how to take orders. You have to learn how to submit to authority. Those kind of things will make or break your career. The next one is respect, learning how to respect yourself so that you can respect a community, you can respect others. It starts with you though. The next one is integrity, and integrity is what we were just talking about, what we do when no one else is around. The decisions we make, in all honesty, why are we making those decisions? Why are we doing the things that we do? The next one is service, and a service is just a bunch of servants that come together and perform a task. Learning how to serve in a way that is in a way that puts everyone before yourself while at the same time staying healthy yourself. And then the last one's teamwork. And putting it all together and doing it all as a team and understanding we can do none of this on our own. We have to have each other. That is what we consider the brotherhood, the family, and that ties them all together in the end.
So how long were you a professional before you decided training was really where your heart was?
So I was 17 years in before I decided the next generation became way more important to me than what I was doing at the time. It was the hardest move I ever made. I loved the fire truck, man. I mean, I have the adrenaline dumps like everyone else, you know. But at the same time, I saw a decrease and a decline in some of just the morality of the generations coming up in our industry. And it meant a lot to me to preserve that. And I thought a lot of it has to do with just what we're teaching when it comes to character, when it comes to the foundation of manhood. That's what we need to really concentrate on. So I embarked on training full time.
And so that calling in the training aspect is not just about, I want you to be safe on the fire scene. I want you to be able to rescue the patient. I want you to be able to walk away and know that your brothers are intact. But I want you to be the kind of person that truly is a hero.
What I tell them when they come in, most academies, when you enter in the door, they're going to tell you their number one job is to get you a job somewhere, get you on somewhere, get you certified that you can go to work. That is not our goal here. That is one goal. One goal is to get them on. The other goal is a healthy, long career. The other goal is to retire and give back one day. So in order to do that, you must learn how to stay healthy throughout your entire 20, 30-year tenure in order to give back. So what success means to me is not just getting on a job somewhere, but squashing the rate of 87% of firefighter marriages that are failing today.
Wow.
To squash the rate that you're 4 times more likely to experience a suicide in your department than a line of duty death. To be able to squash those.
Say that again.
Things.
4 times more likely to experience a suicide in your department than a death in the line of duty.
And let's break that down. We're talking about a business that is in the very tops of the scale when it comes to most dangerous jobs and that you can ever have. So I'm in one of the most dangerous jobs that is even presented out there. And I'm 4 times more likely in the year 2021 to experience one of the people on my team taking their own life than dying in one of the most dangerous jobs in the world.
Wow. That speaks volumes
It
to
does.
the stability of the mental health.
It does, yes, sir.
So when you think about the guys that you have, because I've had a chance to kind of observe your team a little bit here. I'm hoping to spend some more time talking to a few of them one-on-one. But you've got guys who are both currently active and guys who've retired from active service as firefighters who not only understand the whole technological aspect of firefighting, but they also understand the human scale of doing this for years, even decades, amongst other people, seeing some come and go, some retire, some give up, et cetera. How do you pick the guys that you choose or the gals that you choose to serve here as trainers?
That's a good question. We have a lot of applications come in, and what I tell them is I want a very diverse group. First, I want the foundation. I need a foundation of some individual that not just is a good teacher, but a mentor. Someone that can take on that mentorship, that can look at this next generation and care enough about them to say, I will mentor you through this and make sure that you are successful, not just in what you can perform skill-wise, but also when you leave here, you'll become a better man or a better woman. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I like to have a group that demonstrates different types of leadership styles. These kids that go into a firehouse and they're pumped up and ready to go and they have the passion and they finally made it. Now they're stuck in a station with a leader they don't know how to get along with.
Wow.
So I try to make the group diverse enough that they can experience every style of leadership, hard, tough ones,
Drill sergeant style.
soft dad ones, whatever it may be. I try to give them a look at all of that so that they can know how to respond when they get out there.
Now, if you were talking to someone who were sitting on the outside going, I only know about first responders, what the media shows me, what I see on the news. When I see the fire trucks burning in the streets, when I see, firefighters running from the scene rather than running into the scene, when that's what I see, is that a realistic picture? Is that really who these people are? How do you respond to that as a veteran firefighter and a trainer?
Oh, well, Lauren, these are men and women that have families, and men and women that you eat dinner with when you go to the restaurant. Their kids are playing on the same park swings as your kids. They get into this industry because they want to do something that's greater than themselves. And when you see some of what's happening today, they go home and bury their head in their spouse, and they just wonder where they went wrong. And I don't believe it's anything we've necessarily done wrong as a whole. We just need to get together and figure out how we make this better amongst all of us. But it is a tough thing to see some of what is happening today when I know how much passion the majority of these first responders have for just helping others.
I'm really anxious to talk to some of your trainees today, given the opportunity, because you've got to be a different kind of somebody just today to walk in and go, I want to raise my hand, put my life on the line, and walk out there. As you and I discussed as we were setting this up, when you and I went through our training initially, when we responded to a fire, our greatest risk was we would make a mistake, the fire would get out of control, or someone around us would make a mistake, and there would be a peril or loss of life or injury.
Yes.
But now that's not the case. You may not even get to the scene before you become the subject of attack.
That's right.
I've got scheduled with other departments, some guys from Denton and Argyle coming up, and one of them was telling me that they've now been issued bulletproof vests.
That's correct.
With the steel chest plates for long arm fire. And that's a scary thing to think that you may roll up in the truck and before you can get hoses on the ground, you're defending yourself against bullets.
That's a whole nother hazard that we never saw coming. We never thought that day would come, that we were looked upon as an enemy in some way. And knowing the hearts of the majority of these individuals, I know it's a tough thing. It's tough for all of us. We're trying to figure that out as we go.
Well, I hope in the character training especially that you're able to help to bolster them to be able to prepare for that. Mick, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you allowing me to come in and visit with your team.
Yes,
and I hope all of you will help support first responders, help with emotional support, stand behind them, speak positively of them, encourage them when you see them. A high five is not out of the question. And most of these people, like Mick said, they've laid their life on the line. They know that what they're doing is risky. They know that they're taking an enormous risk for themselves, for their family, for their own financial well-being, to do what they do. And this is not a highly rewarding job. I promise you, there's no one in the fire department at any level who makes as much money as the second backup kicker sitting on the sidelines of an NFL game.
Yes.
Just look it up. I promise you, they're not making as much money putting their life on the line to drag you out of a burning building, to rescue you from a car crash, to rescue you from swift water, as the guy who's not kicking the football this week. But I challenge you to support them in every way that you can. I'm J. Lauren Norris with Kingdom First Responders, and I really appreciate you being here and being a part of the show today. And we'll see you back here again with more interviews of first responders. Have a blessed day.